Yun Sil, big warm welcome to Startup Grind. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we dive into today's topic, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Yun Sil. I am originally from Korea. We have set up shop in Singapore, but we did travel to Hong Kong recently last year to also do a soft pitching event with Captain Stable, which focuses on the maritime software sector. So very happy to be here. I'm the co-founder and CEO. I've been doing this for 5 years, so very happy to share about our journey and what we have, and together how we can use AI, which is the theme of this talk today, and how to improve and change the industry.
Yes, and in order to set sort of the context of what you have built, we'll actually start with a live demo. But before we do the live demo, can you give us the sort of the elevator pitch of Moaah, your company?
Okay, so Moaah is actually, a lot of people ask, what does that mean? Is it a made-up word? It actually is a Korean word. I named it Moaah because it means gather together, so with a gathering of things. And the mission for us is to create a smart data center, right, where you can ask anything when you want to ship physical goods cross-border. So for us, now that ChatGPT has come about, we say that, it's really like the ChatGPT for logistics and export and import, right? So for example, if you want to ship out computer parts, you can just search computer parts and put your destination and your origin country, and we will give you as much information that will be required, which will be flagged by the customs authorities when you're shipping goods cross-border.
Great. And with that, let's move into the live demo. And I will ask a few questions and play some different scenarios as if your startup was doing this or that, and how then you can use more. And then we'll go on after the live demo to discuss a little bit how you set it all up and the future of AI.
Yes.
Great. I can see your screen now. So what am I seeing here? What is the basics of Moaah?
Yes. So to simply put, again, we are a search engine. What you're seeing right now is our web application. So whenever we do pitches to companies, we always say that, we are the factory of APIs, right? We build our APIs from the scratch. So the first thing we do is we will gather, right now we have about 133 countries, customs authorities, trade regulations, import-export regulations, and transport regulations. So we structure all of these different countries' data together, and using AI, we match the regulations based on the item name. Right? The reason why we created this is, first and foremost, the problem is that the global supply chain problem of handling way too many jurisdictions, parcels, shipments get forwarded through different borders. So we provide you the ease of access to access global trade and customs regulations from a single point of API. And second is we use the AI to match regulations based on item name. The way that customs regulations publish, write, and enforce their regulations are based on, complex descriptions and wordings of the regulations titles and administration details themselves. So what we do is you don't have to worry about those. You just key in the product name, and we'll use AI, match it to the HS code, which is an international classification code to classify goods across the world given by the WTO. And then we will match the applicable regulations. So it sounds very complicated when I continue on and on about how these work in our backend. But actually, as you can see in our web application, it's a very simple and powerful search engine. So if it's all right, I can maybe start with a simple use case, which is what you see here, the smart HS code match. If you are not already familiar with what HS code is, it stands for Harmonized System code. And from the recent regulations from very big jurisdictions like the United Nations and United States, UK, and a lot of countries in Southeast Asia and Far East, HS codes are mandatory. So if you call up right now to ship parcels using UPS or DHL, they will say, please provide at least 6-digit level minimum HS codes for your parcel to be able to ship cross-border. So for our solution, we provide this easy match solution based on the item description to match to the WTO 6-digit tariff HS code line, which is the minimum requirement for you to ship anything cross-border. And beyond that, we provide matching to national tariff line level, which is the codes beyond the 6-digit level. And these codes are extremely important because depending on what national tariff line codes that you declare to customs, your import duty will be heavily implicated. And one item can range import duty from 0% all the way to 20-30%. So it's absolutely crucial that first your item descriptions match the tariff line that you're declaring, plus what kind of legal implications that it will have given what type of HS codes that you have declared. So we can do a live search here. So our search engine also is enabled with supporting different languages. So if you were to search, for example, a Spanish for telephone, and then let's say we search for going into France, what we'll do is we will automatically detect the language and will match. So as you can notice, translating this telephone, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, into telephone, it means it's smartphone, right? So if you notice the actual descriptions of HS codes that are given by the WTO, it does not contain this exact word, but what we do is we use AI combination of natural language processing to identify that these codes and descriptions are applicable. And we also provide accuracy rating score so that you can determine if there are multiple possible HS codes to be declared. We can sort it according to the probability and the highest likely HS codes that are most similar to the item description.
Yeah, and I know from working with this about 10 years ago that if you have the wrong code, it, as you said, it can first of all cost you a lot of money in extra custom duties, but you can also get goods delayed. So let's say that I'm an e-commerce company in Sweden that want to buy power banks from China. How would I use Moaah?
Right. So power bank, we would say that there are implications in terms of import and export regulations. So if let's try for regulations out of Europe because they tend to be more heavily regulated. So if you go to search power bank and then select imposing country, which means that we are going to now extract the regulations from the United European Union. And these are the first and foremost, the HS codes that are matched for the item name power bank. And here are the accuracy rating of the HS code match. And these are the regulation types that are caught with the item power bank. And from here, we will then provide what are the description of the regulations. So if you go and expand our regulations that are caught, you can see the exact national mechanism, the regulation itself, the directive number, which is very useful. So if you see these regulations and you Google this directive number on Google, then you can actually see the original document and prepare for any of the documents that would be required and mandatory for you to export and import. So another key regulations that are becoming very popular now are actually dual military items. So as you know, there are wars that are happening. So now we have these regulations where common household or common commercial goods that could be used for military purposes are required to declare ECCN or other code to indicate that this could be falling under the dual military. So if you were to search drones in United States, you'll see that we have regulations that are applicable for the ECCN, which stand for the dual military code that you must declare. And you can sort it according to the filtering bar here. So if you were to type in ECCN, this is the ECCN that is filtered, and you will see the ECCN code that will be applicable for the drone parts. And these are the affected countries. So if you're shipping drone parts from Albania into United States, you would be subject to ECCN, and you will have to declare as required under the regulation description.
And when we talked about both the power banks and the drones, they both contain batteries, lithium batteries. So you're also working with the dangerous goods regulations. So you can tell us a little bit about how to avoid getting your goods stuck due to having dangerous stuff in it.
Yes, absolutely. So dangerous goods is actually, in fact, our one of the oldest software that we developed. The reason why we started with the DG regulation is because, surprisingly, there is a cargo fire that's caught once every 2 weeks, right? So there's actually a very high probability of a container or even a commercial airline pallet to contain misdeclared or undeclared DGs. And that is because of few factors, such as, first and foremost, DG shipping fees are very expensive. So some shippers may not voluntarily declare certain items to be DGs. And the another case is that now there are a lot of, smaller retail goods and commerce goods that are flying across, being freight forwarded. So in that case, shippers may not actually be aware that certain items would fall under DGs. Lithium batteries, dry ice, all these are very classical, common example of dangerous goods. But the real problem lies in DGs that are consisting of flammable chemicals, meaning that, so as you can see here in our application, we actually purchased, licensed, I think it close to 900 pages long of IETA, IMO, and DG publications, which are published every day and every year. And we have done an OCR and extracted the DG substance and their packing instructions and risk labels. So what you see here, this acetone oils, butyl, methyl ether, ethyl acetate, all these are the actual DG substance with a UN ID that is actually considered dangerous. So you can imagine a common shipper or a common retailer may not be aware that certain items would even be classified as a DG. So what we have done here is we used an AI to first detect the type of goods that are being keyed in and being destroyed. So in this case, paint thinner. And inside paint thinner, these are the types of chemicals that would be present inside these goods. How we have done it is basically, before we launched this software, there are about hundreds of billions of real life commercial products and their product chemical information that are disclosed to public. So we used that as the first data set to be trained. Then we used about 250,000 real life products to test our own internal accuracy rating, right? On how can we effectively determine the chemical components inside goods. And from there, what we have then determined is, hey, now there is another problem of everything basically getting alerted as a DG, as in fact, about more than 50% of containers that are being shipped worldwide contains DGs, meaning that just as a bare fact that we are living in a world where a lot of goods that are surrounding us, including cosmetics, drugs, or even toothpaste, detergent, all of these would contain some element of DGs inside. So we created this scoring system using AI to determine the danger level of the DGs that are being screened. So as you can see here, paint thinner has a lot of chemicals that are caught. These are DG substances and would have a very high score versus other chemicals. So if you were to put in coffee, and coffee contains caffeine, and caffeine is technically listed as a DG, as you can see here under IETA. And in that case, we still have the caffeine and alkaloids that are caught. But if you look at our scoring, it will be on a lower green range of score, which we would classify as a low danger. If you were to then put in different things like bleach, which contains, chlorine and a lot of other very flammable chemical, in that case, once again, the score will be much higher because it's much more dangerous. And, there are some words like bleach, but chloride, solution chlorine, these are not inside the search term that you put in, but we still are able to detect. And from there, you'll see that it has a very high score of DG. So this graph that you see are what we have developed with the baseline of 250,000, but of course these threshold levels are also set, customized by our users. For users that are not very familiar with how our scoring system work and how should they interpret this, is what we have done is we have screened quarter, so around 250,000 real life products, and we have, you see here, classified according to the use. So for example, detergent, is it called in this? So general hair coloring products, which can be classified in more refined categories. So these are all the types of chemicals like dye and certain oil that may be present, and these are the common average score. So you kind of get a gauge of if you are searching, let's say, bleach, which is all the way top here, relative to this general hair coloring products, it's an extremely high DG item. Then you can also see, like, let's say, formulation products used by engine maintenance. And this is not the exact words that we have screened to get the DG item. We basically classified all the different products within the 250,000 of products that we first initially screened before our launch, and then generalized this so that this is more of like reference points for our users who are new to our system to determine these are the gauge of scoring, and this is how you can set up your own customized scoring based on this sort of a default setting that we provide for you.
And your users, not only you can use this graphical interface, you also provide this as an API.
Yes, absolutely. So our API would come in. Sorry, I don't think I'm able to demo it here because.
No, we can talk a little bit about it, because as we talked about, everybody wants to automate as much as possible. So you build e-commerce system, logistics systems, and so on. So those systems can connect to you.
Yes, exactly. So for our APIs, we generally require 3 arguments at maximum. So one will be the destination country, one will be origin country, and the third will be the product name. And with that, we can match HS codes, we can match the customs regulations, we can match the import duty. Also for the dangerous goods regulation, our API, the only arguments that you need to pass are the type of regulations. So IATA would be for air, IMDG, which is by the IMO, would be for sea freight. And from there, you just have to key in the product name. And because our API will automatically detect all these things, and we will provide you with all the scores. So whatever you see on our webpage here, and all of these packing instructions and risk labels will be provided as part of the API package. And so you can screen it and just automate an easy plugin to your system.
Yeah. And I saw there was actually a question came in through the chat, which I think is also relevant for the next part of the talk. So the question basically was, who are your target customers, or who are the users of Moaah?
That's a great question. So initially, when we started about 5 years ago, our customers that we had in mind were the logistic companies, particularly shipping companies. The reason for that was, as we mentioned, our dangerous goods solution was the first product that we launched, and container shipping were generally having more problem of having, not screening the shipping documents, and a lot of them were misdeclared or undeclared. But from there, then we expanded into the air freight. So we had some very big express shipping, global MNCs as partners at our early POC stage and co-development stage. And now we have then thought, with these logistic companies that we are trying to work with and plug into their system are essentially sending the information to the shippers who are the cargo owners, right? And that turned out to be the actual exporters and importers. So then we created this SaaS product using our APIs that we have thankfully developed with high enough accuracy and easy enough so that public can come in and jump in and just start using it like a Google search engine. So right now we have a mix of customers who are logistic companies, right, that we work privately to do more on a more customization level of, providing this filtering and alerting score that are, meeting their needs for large volume screening basis. But we have this SaaS product that we hope that it will be easy enough for the public to use, and hopefully more and more shippers will be able to use. And we provided a quite an affordable pricing level, and we price on tiers based on the search credits, and any search credit that you have full database access. So that's the new customer segment that we've been targeting, which are the smaller individual exporters and importers across the world.
And how, because the logistic market is a huge market, but how large market do you see for Moaah?
So what is our This may sound very startup pitch like, but I just got a figure here that there's a statistic that show that in the world, the volume of parcels that are shipped cross-border reached 256 billion by 2027 and at a compound annual growth rate of 59%. What we're trying to say is that when we are actually looking down at the individual level, right, of how logistics are working these days, is that everything is basically being forwarded, right? When you're shipping items from country A to B, I think it'll go through many hands, many logistic companies. I think there are more 3PL, 4PL, all different types and services of logistics. So what's important right now is that for us, we're trying, at the end of the day, somebody has to receive, somebody have to cross it, somebody have to talk these information to the customs. And customs, geopolitical, economic wise, things are getting more expensive in terms of taxes. I mean, we hear about anti-dumping rate, for goods coming in from China, and that's very, very real. And we are also looking at a lot of sanctions, embargoes, as mentioned, dual military. These are getting very, very restricted by the customs. So our goal here is let's try to get everyone, either be logistic companies or shippers, to use Moaah, right? To do basically a pre-screening before you fill in your declaration forms.
Yeah, and you can save a lot of money by not having the wrong number in the form. When you look at the world, are there any other companies like you and any competitors?
Absolutely. So, I mean, definitely we are not the first one who thought of let's make sure things are compliant, right? So, I would say traditionally these are all done by either the logistic companies themselves who then outsource it, right, to different service providers, right? Or you have the actual, the agents, who help you to look at this information and fill them in. So, and the next question that we usually get is, then are you looking to replace these players and these service providers? And our simple answer is no, right? We are a software company. We can provide you the information for these regulations, but we do not fill in the forms for you. At the end of the day, you still need the human input to actually make these declarations. This decision making is solely based on human input, right? These could be automated by these, people who fulfill these declarations for you. But what we are doing is we are essentially a knowledge base, right? We are the ones that will provide you the basic ingredients, the basic information that you must have for you to even reach out to the right government authorities, or even to find out, if you are shipping out tens and thousands a month, how are you going to have, people to look at this document manually, or are you going to rely on your shippers to declare correctly? And that's why we'll come in and say, hey, out of 10,000, these are 500 shipments that are super red flagged, and these are restricted. You need to look at it again. HS codes are declared wrong. And that's where we're coming in. We're not replacing anyone, but we're helping your life easier, which is, I think, what AI should be about, right? It's not replacing humans. It's supposed to make you, do less work.
It's all about augmentation and making things better. So how long did it take to create Moaah? And can you tell us a bit about the team behind it?
Sure. So to say the least, it's been very long, 5 years for us. So actually, I mean, went by fast as well. I mean, putting in perspective. But so our founding team is myself, and we have two other co-founders. So my background is actually not in tech. I used to work for a law firm. I'm a lawyer. I'm qualified in New York. I went to law school in LSE, and I was working in law firm in Singapore, right? And we were dealing with a lot of this compliance related disputes, and and I thought, hey, it'd be really great if we can create something that is easier for these companies to check whether these are even able to cross the border, so that they don't end up in this problem. And we thought it was a simple and very easy idea to be executed. And of course, once you start, problems start to come in. So we actually went the other way of, we started off with a lot of government contract, and then we received help from government agency from Singapore called MPA Maritime Port Authority. And from there, we did co-development with some big MNCs who are in logistics sector. So put together, we say that we took about us 2 to almost 3 years to get to that commercialized level of providing high enough accuracy, which we find it has to be above 95%, right? And that took us about 2 to 3 years.
And can you tell us a bit about the technologies that underpin Moaah, your tech stack, and this different parts of the AI that you're using?
So I would say, when we say AI, I think it's kind of it has become a very generalized word. The way that we use AI would always be very use case specific, right? So one example that we have for you is OCR, right? So one common problem, you don't see it in our web application, but the real life problem that we had was, hey, we got this API that works, send us the product names, the destination, origin country, that's all we need. Then our customers were like, hey, actually, we don't log in our product names. You don't actually even see. Well, we just have these paper documents, right, that are image screen, like it's like scanned copies, not even a clean version. And we can give you this. Can you do something out of this? And then we're like, okay, so for them to use our API, we have to develop this OCR to read shipping documents, right? And then we started looking around. There are a lot of these AI OCR packages and open source and private companies, like third-party sellers, right? And we explored like all of them, and then we only got accuracy of like 10-20% because first the image was poor, and second, every shipping documents were formatted differently, right? So then what we did was, hey, let's think of AI as it's an enabler, right? So what do we look for when we read shipping invoices, right? So instead of going at it and being like, we will identify the item descriptions, we incorporated more of not so much of an OCR like text classification, like text recognition. We actually went into the NLP route. So we will basically extract a lot of texts and we will eliminate based on identifying words that would, using NLP, not be classified as a product name or commercial name or brand name, right? So we make use of this different concept of AI, and of course there are a lot of testings and trial, but I would say that once we got that right strategy of using the right type of AI in our backend codes, that without having to have a lot of test data sets, that we were able to get from accuracy rating of 20% to now we have 98%. So and when we got our the backend API structure properly, our accuracy just jumped to about 50-60% very quickly.
That's a really smart approach to not just OCR everything, but actually think that, as you said, the other way around, what should be there. Now, how easy to work with governments to get this data, shipping companies on the paper, but how easy it is to get from all of these different countries around the world?
Oh, well, I think if it was easy, then we have no business.
Yes, okay, yes. It's a good moat then, because it's hard. And
yeah, so, well, I mean, secretly, we're kind of hoping, there will be no one super intergovernmental agency that's gonna now like provide everything so easily. I mean, we're very, very far from it because there's genuinely even lots of delay coming from regulations that are enforced, reenacted, but they don't put it in the customs authority's website because, our government agencies are very, silo, and there's a bit of delay, not pointing to any particular country, but generalized. So it's definitely not. So for example, with the DG regulations, these are PDFs. So we have to buy the publications, we have to actually, and these are like hard copies, and even if soft copy is just PDF files of like 1,000 pages long. So you have to do a lot of groundwork just to get these data structured and have it in our consolidated database for any of our APIs to use them. Same with the import and export regulations, same with the import duty taxes. But once again, if it was easy, we wouldn't be around. So, as frustrated as our development team who has to clean this up, and sometimes they're just, oh, what's happening, because sometimes things that were even supposed to be there is not there, and actually a lot of like Chinese customs authorities website, they kind of have a lot of server problem frequently. So, there are these hurdles, but definitely we tell them, if it was easy, we all wouldn't be here. And we are very grateful that we actually had a head start. I know that there are a lot of other competitors that we are aware of that are jumping into this now because of this sudden rise of customs, attitude towards basically requiring everything to be pre-screened now. So we were very happy that we had a head start of 5 years. Crazy enough to start doing that.
No, but it's a very good case. You overcame these challenges, and now you have a moat that others have difficulty to cross. And the governments of the world, and you look at the EU, are going to implement new regulations. So the complexity is still there. If we take a look sort of outside, when you look, because you work with AI and you use AI at Moaah, when you look at the world, what emerging AI technologies do you think going to be groundbreaking over the years?
Well, I mean, we've already seen ChatGPT, right? And
Yep.
I think even before ChatGPT was around, I think a lot of us enthusiasts probably seen a lot of this AI being developed and being used. The next thing that we see is definitely the sort of the AI being used in coding. I mean, as you're all aware, a lot of coding can, be is quite a systematic structure, right? So we are aware of some successful companies that are able to use AI to do sort of a human coding on a basic level. So that's one thing. Another, definitely more integrated with NLP, right? It's definitely the OCR. The reason for that is I think OCR is just going to be the reality of this industry, of especially supply chain and logistics, right? Yes, everything is still online and everything is digital, but we feel that OCR is still a very crucial and fundamental starting point of even, we must have certain data, like, we must have enough data of real life data for you to do real life, screening and get information and get value out of. So we do feel that OCR is going to be more and more upcoming trends across that, I think, in many other industries as well.
Yeah, and for these large models to train and to become even better, they give even more data, so even more going to be ready. So if you were a startup, now you're running Moaah, but if you were thinking about starting an AI startup, what advice would you give a founder? Because when they want to get started with AI in a startup?
Well, my advice is, I think, to be honest, I think AI is prevalent because AI has become so common, right? That it's not really the special, like groundbreaking, a special concept or special unique selling point that you have as a company anymore. But so you definitely have to focus still on the reality of it, right? What is your AI solving, and is it helping anybody? Right. And that's the first and foremost, the first question. And I think that also with AI, there's, I think, setting the right expectation as well. So we commonly have this, we tell our users that, as you see, like our HS codes have scoring system, our DG detection has a scoring system. The reason for that is that there's still limitations, no matter how perfect an AI can be, right? Because I haven't seen beyond, like a calculation level, right, of an AI, they can actually perform more smarter decision-making skills than actual human. What I'm saying is that you give human and you give AI the same data sets, like same information available, a human will any day make smarter decision, right? So when we sell our solution to our users, we try to communicate that expectation that, hey, we are using AI to try to minimize like at least 60, 70, 80% of your work. But that does not mean that we are creating this super awesome, like intelligence that can make better decisions than a human being. So I think when we are always communicating and pitching to our customers, I think them understanding what is your goal and what is your mission in using the AI and what is a reality that they can accept, right? Then you can, when you have this common expectation, and I think moving forward is a lot easier.
Yeah, and then when you save that time, as you said, the human still needs to be in the loop, but the human that is in the loop who gets their job becomes more prepared or more easier, so you can spend time on other things that adds value. How, when you look at this and when you talk to your customers, how do you recommend companies to implement systems like this and at government departments as well? So to get these tools like this and other AI into the organizations.
So, I mean, definitely, the companies that are working with us have their own internal initiative of, they have their own reasons why they want to use the AI. And what we recommend is, once again, going back to setting the right expectation, right? We always tell them that you also need to think about what you also have, right? Like what I mentioned, some of the companies wanted to use that DG detection, right? But then they realize, hey, we don't even log our entries of item names. I mean, I think there's a certain basic structure that they need to have for these AI solutions to use, right? Because AIs like us, we're normally focused on quite an integrated, like further down decision making level of providing these results rather than basic structuring, right, of their existing data. So you need to also, I think, have a sudden clean, not clean, but digitalization, and the cleaner it is, the easier for companies like us to come in and get integrated with. And also another thing is sometimes we do, when we look at proposals, right? I mean, that are coming to, sort of requests for proposals, right? When we look at these RFPs, and we read them, and we're supposed to propose as a vendor, we do sometimes get a bit confused of what companies want, right? Because they will say, hey, we have this problem, but then it's quite an open-ended solution that they want, and then they kind of say, hey, it'd be great if you do this, but if not, can we do this? And then makes us, I think, harder for vendors like us, especially companies that are focusing on AI, will be very niche, right? They'll be very specialized. So I think expecting companies like us to sort of solve all the problem for you, that's a bit of unrealistic. So if you can also break down your requirements and not expecting one vendor to like fulfill everything, but maybe you can compartmentalize and then make it more module, then it'll be easier for adoption and integration.
Yeah, that's a very good point to help you to implement your service. So to know it's your own process as the one who requests the help.
Yeah.
Yun Sil, big thank you for being a guest of Startup Grind. It's been so interesting to see what you do and what Moaah does.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And we're now going to look at, I know there was some questions coming in the chat, so I'm going to look